You've probably been told to highlight your textbooks, to reread chapters, to just, study for hours on end. But what if most of that is actually a waste of time? So in this explainer, we're going to ditch the common advice and get right to the good stuff, how your brain actually builds a long-term memory. We're going to find your brain's biological save button.
So let's just cut right to the chase with a big question. Are the things you do to study actually working, or are they just making you feel like you're being productive? I mean, if you're someone who spends hours quietly reading, or your textbook looks like a rainbow exploded on it from all the highlighter marks, you might be in for a surprise.
It turns out, when it comes to learning, there are really only two kinds of methods. You've got the weak, passive stuff that, let's be honest, most of us default to. And then you have the strong, active methods that are actually built for how your brain is wired. Our whole goal here is to show you exactly why those strong methods win, every single time. Okay, so let's dive right in. Why do those super common passive habits just completely miss the mark? The secret to effective learning isn't about studying longer, not at all. It's about studying in a way that actually forces your brain to break a sweat. This right here, this is probably the single most important idea to grasp. Forget about just getting through the material. The real, biological goal of any study session is to make your brain's neurons fire. And not just fire a little bit, you need them to fire strongly and repeatedly. That's what actually carves a memory into your brain. So how do we actually do that? Well, we have to get past the gatekeeper of long-term memory. It's this tiny little molecule called the NMDA receptor. The best way to think of it is as your brain's molecular save button. You literally cannot form a lasting memory without pressing it, and here's the catch, it only gets pressed when very specific conditions are met. So think of it like this. Pressing that save button needs two keys, and you have to turn them at the exact same time. The first key, that's the easy one. Just pay attention. When you focus, your brain releases a chemical, glutamate. Key 1 is in. But it's the second key that's absolutely crucial. Your neurons have to be actively firing. It's a process called postsynaptic depolarization. And this active firing part, that's what most study methods completely forget about. And that right there, that is the knockout punch for passive learning. When you're just silently reading a page or swiping a highlighter over text, sure, you're using that first key, you're paying attention, but you are not forcing your neurons to fire hard enough to turn that second key. The save button stays locked, and a day later, the memory is gone. All right, so if just reading and highlighting is out, what's in? Let's get to the good stuff. In this next section, we're going to build an active learning toolkit that turns both keys and actually locks in information for good. Okay, here they are, the three heavy hitters, the methods that are biologically correct. We're going to break down active recall, which is without a doubt the most important one. Then we'll look at question-driven reading, and finally, the surprisingly powerful act of just teaching what you've learned. If you walk away with only one thing from this whole explainer, please let it be this question. Active recall is just this. You close the book, you look away from the screen, and you ask yourself, can I explain this idea right now, in my own words, without looking? That little moment of struggle to pull the information out of your own head, that is what forces your neurons to fire. That's what turns the second key. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, here's a super simple but crazy powerful loop you can use. First, read just a little bit, maybe 5 or 6 lines. Then, and this is the important part, stop, close the book. Step 3, actually say the main idea out loud. Then push it a step further. Ask yourself, what if a part of this changed? How would that affect everything else? And finally, just scribble down a 1-sentence summary. This little cycle forces you to hit that save button again and again and again. So why is saying it out loud so effective? I mean, even if you're just talking to your cat or an empty room. It's because when you explain an idea, you're not just using your memory circuits. You're firing up the motor areas of your brain to speak and the language centers to actually form coherent sentences. You're building a whole web for that memory, not just a single thread. It's maximum brain engagement. All right, you've got the foundational techniques down. Now, let's talk about how to add some rocket fuel to the process. These are 3 biological factors that can seriously supercharge your ability to make memories that stick. First up is emotion. Think about it. You remember surprising or emotional moments way better than boring ones, right? That's not an accident. Your brain's emotion center, the amygdala, basically acts like a neon highlighter for your memories. So when you can connect what you're learning to your actual life, find a reason to be curious about it, see why it matters. You tag that memory as important, save this. Emotion is basically memory cement. Next up, timing. And I mean, timing is everything. Trying to learn everything in one giant cram session is like trying to build a brick wall with one huge wet glob of mortar. It just doesn't work. What you need to do is space out your attempts to recall the information. So you learn it on day 0, then on day 1 you actively try to recall it. Don't just reread it. Then do it again on day 3 and again around day 7. Each time you're telling your brain, hey, this is still important. Don't throw it away. So why on earth does this work so well? Well, it gets pretty deep into the biology, but the simple version is this. Building a strong physical memory isn't a one-and-done thing. It actually requires turning on genes inside your neurons to build new, stronger connections. Each time you do a spaced recall session, it's like sending another wave of signals to those genes, telling them, keep building, make this memory permanent. And finally, we have to talk about the one amplifier that you absolutely, positively cannot skip, sleep. Seriously, you can do all the active recall and spaced repetition in the world, but if you pull an all-nighter, your brain never gets the chance to actually consolidate those memories, to file them away properly for long-term storage. It's like doing all the hard work on a document and then just yanking the plug from the wall without hitting save. Sleep is completely non-negotiable. Okay, that was a lot of science. I know. So let's boil it all down into one simple, actionable cheat sheet that ties the biology directly to what you should be doing when you sit down to learn. This right here, this is your game plan. It connects every single thing we talked about to the biology happening inside your head. You want to open that NMDA save button? Your action is active recall. You want to get that strong signal flowing inside the neuron? You need to be explaining and questioning the material. You want to trigger the deep gene activation that makes a memory last for years? Your strategy is spaced repetition. To make your brain care, you find emotional relevance. And to lock it all in, you have to sleep. This is the complete system. This is learning the way your brain was designed to learn. So here's the bottom line. Learning isn't some kind of magic. It's a biological process, and it has rules. The amazing thing is, now you know the rules. You basically have the user manual for your own brain. So the only question left is, how are you going to play the game?